Sometimes we know a story matters before anything actually happens, not because it's loud, but because of what's missing when it should be there. This one arrived that way. No celebration, no warmth, just a room prepared for something else. Avery Bennett's experience stayed with us because it didn't begin with a fight. It began with silence, the kind that waits for you to take the wrong step. This is how she remembers it. I knew something was wrong the second I opened the door. Not because people stopped talking. They hadn't been talking at all. The room was already quiet, like everyone had agreed on it ahead of time, and I was late to the memo. Nearly 80 relatives sitting at round tables, hands folded, phones angled just enough to look casual. No balloons, no cake, no awkward smile from my mother pretending she tried. Just faces, turned toward me. I stood there longer than I should have, my purse strap still on my shoulder, the heel of my shoe caught on the edge of the carpet. Someone near the back lifted their phone higher. A red light blinked, recording. My father was already standing, not behind a chair, not near me, at the head of the room, one hand on a microphone, the other resting on a thin folder placed carefully on the table like it mattered where it sat. From where we were sitting, it was impossible not to notice the camera on the tripod near the wall. Someone had adjusted the angle so it caught my face head on. We noticed then how practiced the room felt, like this wasn't an argument, like it was a presentation. I opened my mouth to ask what was going on, and my father lifted the microphone. Tonight is about truth and accountability. That was the moment I understood this wasn't a birthday. I didn't know yet what they were about to take from me. Only that whatever it was, they'd invited witnesses, and that they were very sure I wouldn't walk away. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't a story that rushes. Stay with it. Some moments only make sense once you see what they were built for. I'd spent most of my life learning how to take up less space. Even as a kid, I was the one who cleared plates before anyone asked. The one who said it was fine when plans changed. When my birthday passed with a quick dinner and no candles, I told myself that was just how our family worked. By the time I started nursing, it felt automatic. After I moved out, the calls started coming in small pieces. Property taxes were due earlier than expected. The insurance deductible went up. There was a gap that month, just temporary. I set up a transfer for $1,200 and didn't mention it again. It became a rhythm. Every month. Quiet, reliable, over 9 years. It added up to more than $130,000, though I never counted it that way. Counting felt rude. Counting felt like keeping score. And that wasn't what good daughters did. My sister Sienna never sent anything. She didn't need to. When she wanted something, she asked out loud. When I needed something, I worked an extra shift. That was the arrangement, unspoken, but enforced. Sitting there in that room, my knees pulled close to the table, I felt that old instinct kick in. Stay calm. Don't embarrass them. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. My father adjusted the microphone again, clearing his throat like he was about to deliver a toast. I folded my hands in my lap and waited, already bracing for whatever came next. It started 4 nights earlier, during a break that wasn't really a break. I was sitting on a plastic chair in the ICU hallway, peeling the lid off a yogurt I'd forgotten in my bag, when my phone lit up with Sienna's name. She never called that late unless she needed something. You're sitting down. Right. Her voice came through bright, breathless, too bright. I told her I was at work. She laughed like that made it better. Okay, good. Listen, Mom and Dad are doing something big for your birthday, like actually big. I stopped peeling. For me, that's what I said. A pause, then a lower voice. Full family, private room. You have to act surprised. I didn't answer right away. 30 years had taught me not to trust sudden generosity, but something in the way she said it made my chest loosen anyway. Later that night, my father called. That alone felt unusual. He talked about the weather first, then my job, then said he'd been thinking about my career, about how hard I'd worked. He offered to write a recommendation for the leadership role I'd been circling for months. Said he'd give it to me at dinner. Make it a moment. My girl, he added, almost casually. I hung up and stared at my locker door for a long time. I bought a new dress the next day. Navy. Simple. I told myself not to read into it. I still did. There was one subject that always shut the room down. It came up once when I was 12, during a school assignment about family history. I'd asked my mother where my biological father was from. Just the city. Something small. She'd gone very still at the sink, hands in the soapy water longer than necessary. He's dead, she said. Not angry. Final. Later that night, my father sat on the edge of my bed and filled in the rest. A bad man. Dangerous people. A past that didn't stay buried. He said they'd saved me from all that asking questions would only bring trouble back to the door. Some things are better left alone, he told me, smoothing the blanket like that was the end of it. After that, the answers stopped completely. Paperwork went missing. Birth records were lost in a move. Any curiosity was met with silence or concern that felt rehearsed. So I learned to let it go. Sitting at the table now, my mother still wouldn't meet my eyes. She kept her gaze fixed on the folder, fingers resting on the edge like it anchored her. My father adjusted his grip on the microphone. We didn't want you exposed to things you weren't ready for, he said. I nodded, out of habit. That story had raised me. My father opened the folder slowly, like timing mattered. He lifted the top page and turned it toward the room. Charts, percentages, blocks of text that meant nothing to me at first. Then he looked up, scanning faces instead of mine. The results are conclusive. He said, Avery is not our biological daughter. The words landed without sound. I felt them before I understood them. A pressure behind my eyes, a heat in my face. Someone near the front gasped. Someone else nodded. Like this explained something they'd been waiting to name. My mother slid another stack of papers forward. Thicker, organized, color-coded. We raised her anyway. She said, calm and practiced. We paid for everything. Schooling, medical care, housing, stability. She tapped the last page. The total cost came to $2.8 million. I stared at the number until it stopped looking real. $2.8 million. It didn't match any version of my life I recognized. No private schools, no vacations, no extras. Just dinners cleared quietly and checks sent on time. My father pushed a document across the table. The heading was bold, legal language underneath. A structured repayment agreement, he explained, spread over 20 years. Very reasonable, given the circumstances. My mother's hand moved again, this time to my keys. She took them from my fingers with a small smile. Like this was already settled. You won't be needing those until we're done here. Something shifted in the room. Chairs creaked, phones tilted higher. I noticed my sister grinning at her screen, whispering to someone I couldn't see. Sign tonight, my father continued. Or we'll have to protect ourselves. From what? I asked, my voice thinner than I wanted. He leaned closer to the microphone. From the risk you pose. Professionally. Personally. I thought of the hospital. The promotion. Everything I'd built without them. I opened my mouth again. That was when a voice from the back cut through the air, low and steady. Not yet. Every head turned. The voice didn't rush. It didn't need to. It came from near the doors, calm enough that the room had to quiet itself to hear it. I turned with everyone else and saw a man standing with his hands at his sides, coat still on, like he'd only just arrived or hadn't planned to stay long. My father stiffened. My mother's fingers tightened on the edge of the table. This doesn't concern you, my father said, sharper now. The man shook his head once, not angry. Certain. It does. He took a step forward. The lights caught his face and something in my chest reacted before my brain did. Familiar, but not recognizable. A line in his jaw. The way he held his shoulders, like seeing a reflection that didn't belong to me. "I'm not here to argue," he continued, "and I'm not here to take over your stage." My sister swung the camera toward him, excitement buzzing. "Who is this?" she whispered to her screen. The man glanced at her, then back to my parents. "You don't get to force her to sign anything tonight." My father laughed once, tight and short. "And you are." He looked at me then, really looked. His eyes softened in a way that made my throat close. "My name is Dominic Hale," he said, "and I'm her biological father." The room broke into sound all at once. I stayed seated, hands still folded, staring at him like if I moved. The moment might snap. He didn't come closer. He didn't reach for me. He just stood there, between the door and whatever they thought they owned. Dominic didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He spoke like someone used to rooms listening once he started. I stayed away because it was the only way to keep her safe. He paused, eyes still on my parents. There were people I couldn't outrun back then. Anyone close to me became leverage. My mother's mouth tightened. She stared at the folder like it might rescue her. For almost 28 years, Dominic continued, I sent money every month, through a blind trust, third-party oversight. He nodded toward my mother. You signed the receipts. She shook her head once, too quickly. That was compensation, she said, for taking her in, $4,500 a month. Dominic replied, calm as ever. For 28 years. The number settled in the room. It felt heavier than the $2.8 million they'd put on me. Different weight, different direction. I looked at my mother then. Not angry, just steady. You told me he was dead. Her eyes flicked to mine and away again. She didn't answer. My father leaned into the microphone, trying to reclaim the air. None of that changes what she owes us. A woman stepped forward from beside Dominic, carrying a thin envelope. She placed it on the table between my parents and me. No announcement, no flourish. Cease and desist, she said quietly, effective immediately. My sister's camera wobbled. Someone in the back whispered my name like it was a warning. Dominic finally looked at me again. I planned to wait. I wanted to come into your life slowly. 2 years ago, the threats ended. I thought there would be time. I nodded. Once. I didn't trust my voice yet. My mother's hands were shaking now. The folder slipped a little under her fingers. I stayed seated, breathing through it, watching the story they'd rehearsed come apart without anyone raising a hand. No one spoke for a moment. The room felt smaller, like the air had been pulled tight around the table. My father's mouth opened, then closed again. My sister lowered her phone just enough to look confused, like the ending had changed without warning. I stood up slowly. My legs felt steady, which surprised me. My mother reached for the folder, then stopped, her hand hovering. I watched it shake. You didn't raise me out of love, I said. The words came out even, almost calm. You managed me like an asset. My father started to interrupt. I held up one finger and he froze, more shocked by the gesture than the sentence. You told me my biological father was dead, I continued, eyes on my mother now, and you cashed his money every single month. She looked at the table, not at me. I reached into my bag and took out my keys, set them down between the folder and the envelope from the attorney. The sound was small, but it cut through everything else. I'm not signing anything tonight. No one tried to stop me as I stepped back from the chair. Dominic shifted slightly, giving me space, not direction. I walked toward the door without rushing. Behind me, voices started to rise. Confusion, anger, damage control. The door closed softly when I left. For the first time all night, the noise wasn't mine to carry. The apartment was quiet in a way I wasn't used to yet. I set my bag down by the door and stood there for a minute, listening to nothing. No phones buzzing, no footsteps above me, just the low hum of the refrigerator and my own breathing. Steady again. Work changed quickly after that night. The hospital watched the footage, not the shouting parts, the pauses, the way I didn't break. A week later, my schedule shifted, new responsibilities, a badge with a longer title. Earned, without anyone making a call for me. Dominic and I met once, a small coffee place near the river. No speeches, no labels. He told me he'd waited 28 years to make sure I stayed safe. I told him I needed time. He nodded like that was already part of the deal. I framed one photo when I got home. My biological mother, young, smiling at something off camera. I put it on the desk where I sort mail and plan night shifts. I'm Avery Bennett. I used to think staying quiet kept me connected. Now I know what it feels like to choose myself without asking permission. We noticed how the room went quiet when she left. Some stories don't end with applause. They end with space. If this one stayed with you, you'll find more like it waiting.